Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 8th Webster Board of Education reorganization meeting. Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. As our first order of business, can we have a motion to move out of executive session, please? Janice, second. All in favor? Aye. All accounted for. It's very hard to see everybody in one row. Thank you. Motion carries. So we know there's been a mask update from the Department of Health that was just issued, and so we're going to remove our masks. We came in with them. There aren't students here. School is not in session. We're socially distanced. We're vaccinated. I just wanted to make that announcement first. Thank you. And then secondly, can we have a motion, please, to amend the agenda? So moved. Maria, second by Janice. So we have 5 speakers who are lined up to speak this evening. Anyone having registered after the deadline, according to the policy that we've reinstated and amended the past few months, will please speak at the end of the meeting. That's the amendment. Next, I just have a brief statement that I'd like to read. This evening marks the beginning of a new year for the board, our 2 new board members, and our continued partnership with Brian Neenan as our interim superintendent. We are excited to work with senior leadership and expand the possibilities that await all of us to find new ways to work together, to communicate, create common ground, and build understanding within the challenges of the past year and the current challenges around public education. Thought Exchange has been introduced and has garnered a lot of information and feedback. We look forward to utilizing this platform to gather additional feedback on an array of topics. We will meet twice this summer in a retreat format to define our goals and work for the coming year. We are waiting for guidance from New York State regarding a full return to school in the fall, and will continue working with our colleagues across the county in our advocacy efforts for local control where possible, should another medical or emergency situation arise. Also then further, regarding public comment, we as a board appreciate the comments of the community during the public session of the board meeting. Your comments are important to us. Concerns raised will be referred to the district administration for follow-up or action by the board where appropriate. The board will not be responding to comments during the session, but please be assured that we are listening. Finally, we ask all individuals during their speaking time to model the conduct that we expect from our students in school daily. Please be respectful of others in your words, conduct, and demeanor. We will observe the 3-minute time limit this evening as we have an extremely full agenda. Thank you, everyone. So, moving on to new board business. We have the organizational. We will ask that you respect any individual's right to do what they choose to do. Please do no outbursts. Please conduct a respectful meeting. Thank you. The organizational meeting agenda is a separate agenda, quite lengthy, and our board clerk, Cindy Cushman, will lead the next oaths of office and the next few business items.
Thank you, Tammy. At this time, I'm pleased to administer the oaths of office for our elected members Jennifer Birdsong-Ing, and Shanna Ladelfa. Will you please stand and raise your hands? Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member, Webster Board of Education, according to the best of your ability? Congratulations. The first order of business is the election of board officers. I will now entertain nominations for President of the Board of Education for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'd like to nominate Tammy Gorowski for president.
Is there a second?
Second.
Who was it? Okay, thanks. Are there any other nominations or any discussion? Okay, and now we will declare that closed, and we will obtain a roll call vote in alphabetical order. Mike Alt?
Yes.
Jennifer? Linda?
Yes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Shanna? Janice?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations, Tammy. Would you like to stand for your oath? Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of President, Webster Board of Education, according to the best of your ability?
I do.
Congratulations. If you could sign that. I will now entertain nominations for the Vice President of the Board of Education for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'd like to nominate Janice Richardson. I second. I second as well.
Are there any other nominations or discussion? Okay, this portion of the nominations are closed, and we'll take another roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Shanna?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Congratulations. Janice, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of Office of Vice President, Webster Board of Education, according to the best of your ability? Congratulations. And I'll now turn the meeting over to our president, who will administer the oath of office to Interim Superintendent Meenan.
Mr. Brian Meenan, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Interim Superintendent of Schools, Webster Central School District, according to the best of your ability?
I do.
And then the next oath is to Board Clerk Cindy Cushman. Cindy, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of District Clerk, Webster Central School District, according to the best of your ability?
I will.
Okay, moving on through the rest of the reorganizational agenda. The next appointments are quite lengthy. Do we have that? Okay, I didn't know if that was showing. Brian, would you like to speak to it? Would you like to go by Roman numeral?
Sure, I'll take you through all the appointments. The
Okay.
first group of appointments is just appointing the officers for the district around things such as purchasing agent, our auditor, internal auditor, external auditor, claims auditors, substitute auditors, who's going to audit our extra classroom, who does tax collection, attorneys for the district, district physicians, and the other office positions such as records management officer, freedom of information officer, Title VII, Title IX coordinators, and Medicaid compliance officer, to name a few of them.
Are there any questions about any of the district appointments?
Brian, I noticed that there, from last year, there were 3 attorneys that were listed for the district, and it looks like we now just have 2. Is that correct, that I think it's Bolanos is no longer a district attorney?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, can we have a motion then, please, to accept the district appointments? By Jen, second? By Maria, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Any
Yep, I have one,
Decline?
I'm going to abstain, just
And
out of a
abstentions?
potential conflict of interest, as it's only been a year since I've worked at Labella. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on.
Next up is some financial information, the district designations of banks that we have listed here. And now the banks that we have listed are all possibilities that we could have funds in. We might not utilize them all at the same time. We'd be able to move around. It gives the district the most options to shop around who has the best interest rates at the time. So we're listing pretty much every available bank in the area here, and then pretty much it's a cut and paste right out of New York State General Municipal Law of what we can do with our funds and what the banks have to do with our funds as well around collateralization.
Are there any questions about the depositories of district funds? Seeing none, then, can we have a motion, please, to appoint the district designations? So moved by Mike, second by Linda. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
I believe that is unanimous. Thank you, motion carries. Moving on.
Next up are just the necessary resolutions listing some commissioners' regulations, what accounts are viable at the secondary buildings for extra classroom where they could actually open up bank accounts. Those have been that are audited every year, so we have a listing there, giving power to the purchasing agent as well and what the purchasing agent can do, and the authority vested in them, as well as the interim superintendent of schools, to enter into some agreements as well.
Any questions regarding persons to administer petty funds? Thank you. May we have a motion, please, to accept those appointments? By Maria, second.
Second.
Janice, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries.
Next up, we have fees and charges that the district performs for use of our facilities, or rental of our buses, or rental of our musical instruments. The one thing I do want to point out is you'll notice that school lunch and school breakfast are currently identical to last year. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail when we go over the school lunch program a little later on. And then the fees we charge for use of school facilities, the rental of our facilities. And just as a reminder, we do have 3 different groups, 3 different rates for certain groups that get no charge for use of our facilities. We have a second group for local nonprofits, and then pretty much a third group, which is private entities that are looking to utilize our facilities for whatever endeavors they might be going on. So those are the fees associated with use of our facilities and equipments.
Any questions about the fees, building use funds? Seeing none, can we have a motion, please, to accept the lunch agreements and, sorry, I'm on the wrong page,
Fee schedules.
in the fee schedule for the rental of facilities?
So moved.
By Linda, second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries. And next,
And then last up is the salary actions on really a lot of our substitute positions and our per diem positions. A lot, you'll notice, have to do with the Aquatic Center. Just want to point out, there we have, probably about 3 years ago, when minimum wage really started to accelerate every January. Historically, I think if you went back into our reorg minutes, you would see we changed our rates every July 1. They followed our fiscal year, but we're still doing this at this meeting, but we have switched it to a January, December timeframe, just because minimum wage has impacted so many of these positions, such as, lifeguard, things like that, the head lifeguard, swim instructors, those positions that we're approving here, and those substitute positions as well. So we leave it as a suggested rate for these positions to help HR when it comes to recruiting and trying to get people into these positions. And then we do give a boost to those that return to us, get an adjustment regardless for coming back to us in any number of those positions. And then the last, besides those sub-positions, are the special education consultant fees that we've set for those charges for services for when a hearing officer determines appropriate third-party evaluations are necessary, that we set those rates for those outside providers as well.
and any questions regarding the salary actions? Seeing none, can we have a motion, please, to accept all included in the salary actions?
So moved.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Jen.
Jen.
And then me.
And a second by Maria. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries. Thank you, Brian. That leads us through the reorganizational meeting agenda for this evening and brings us to visitor speaking time. We have 5 individuals who have signed up to speak. Cindy, if you'd like to introduce them, please come to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Sure. Would all visitors please announce your name and your address? First speaker is Brendan Casey.
I'm Brendan Casey, live in 1127 Woodbridge Lane. Actually, that's not right. That's 1130 Sagebrook Way. That's my old address. Okay, a little nervous. All right, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to talk here tonight. I think it's great to see so many people who care deeply about our children and the education of them, and it's great to be part of it. Especially want to thank those who are here voluntarily, who aren't getting paid. So it's certainly all the parents who are here, but also the school board is here. They don't get paid as well. And I know that's not always thought to be the case, but it is true. I know at the last election, there was rumors that the school board got paid, or the people who made money off it, and they didn't. And my wife in particular was people thought we got free medical from the district. That's not true. When my wife joined, the deal was after you were here 20 years, if you were on the school board for 20 years, you got the benefit of paying full price for the district's insurance. So there was no discount. There was no cost to the district. It was completely paid by the person. So thanks to everybody who's here. But that's not what I want to talk about tonight. What I want to talk about tonight is critical race theory. And I get it that there is no critical race theory curriculum in Webster, or I think in New York State. There may be in other states, but not here. But there's 2 howevers. And the first however is that while there is no curriculum, it will come up in class. Kids will ask, someone will ask the teacher about it. It's certainly in the news, and it's certainly, if there's kids watching the school board they'll ask about it too. And the teachers will answer, and they will do something. They will say it to the best of their ability. They'll respond. Some will do a great job, some will do a medium job, some will do a not so great job. But that'll happen. And those kids will go home and they'll tell their parents, we talked about critical race theory today. That doesn't mean there's a curriculum. That just means there's questions and answers. And I would encourage the district not to give guidance to the teachers about that, because what will happen is you'll say, that's your curriculum. You've told them what to do. I would say don't do that. The other, however, is the state. And the state sets the curriculum. In New York, the state sets the curriculum. The school board doesn't set the curriculum. When my wife started, the school board did have a say in the curriculum, but they don't now. So if you don't want critical race theory, you need to talk to legislators, you need to talk to Albany. Talking to the school board about it doesn't really do that much. Now you could say, hey, you know what, if the state comes and says we want CRT, just don't do it. Well, there's a problem with that, and it's the same problem that you had with not doing what the state said with the coronavirus stuff. We get $60 million of our budget from the state. So we have a $190 million budget, $60 million is paid for by the state, $130 million is paid by the rest of the Webster community. So if you come and say, don't do what the state does, and the state takes away the $60 million, that would mean our taxes go up 50%, if you do the math. Nobody in Webster is going to agree to the taxes going up 50% to be able to say, we're not doing what the state said for critical race theory, or for that matter, for the school opening stuff. So don't mess up the $60 million. And I think I can speak for all of the vast majority of the Webster people, the 40,000 Webster people, don't make the taxes go up 50%. The last thing is that the school has a principle that all students should have the opportunity to be the best they can be, to do the best they can do, and to reach their full potential. And they have a principle that all the students should feel welcome in the school, they should all feel part of Team Webster. The words they use for that include words like equity and inclusion. Unfortunately, those words now have special meaning with regards to critical race theory. So my ask to the board and to the anti-critical race theory people is get together and come up with the right language that reinforces the idea that all students have the opportunity, all students will be given the opportunity to do the best they possibly can, and that all students should feel welcome as part of Team Webster, but not use words that critical race theory opponents or proponents, either way, are going to say means something for critical race theory, because it has nothing to do with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Miranda.
Good evening, school board. Good evening, parents. My name is Joe Miranda. I live with my wife, Marcia, at 422 Hobson's Choice. I'm a former teacher. Our two children graduated from Thomas High School. A few decades ago, a divisive ideology, critical race theory, or CRT, was given life. The Center for Renewing America lists 87, that's 87, umbrella terms under CRT which can potentially confuse anyone, and lately, even the scholars who birthed this policy and their henchmen. The basic foundation of CRT relies on those who are white to understand that they have had the way pay for them with a corresponding requirement that they identify as the oppressor. And those who are of color have had all aspects of white culture play a part in holding them back, thus making them the victim. Meritocracy, or being rewarded for selecting a worthy goal, planning ahead, and working hard to attain that objective, one of many identified as having evil white cultural origins, is to be replaced with a line of thinking called equity. Sounds nice, but equity is a guarantee of the same outcome regardless of the work one puts in. Equality, through the equal opportunities which abound, will be a thing of the past if CRT gets much more of a foothold in our schools. behind your backs, teachers and student workshops where CRT has been surreptitiously labeled with innocuous terms like culturally responsible teaching are alive and well. It gives me great displeasure to report that Dr. Martin Luther King, who espoused equality, isn't just rolling in his grave, he's spinning. Most adults of any skin color with a scintilla of common sense and decency and who look into CRT will leave rightfully shaking their head at what has been billed as a long overdue solution and is nothing more than pure, unadulterated racism. You will easily understand why schools will talk full transparency as it relates, but cannot and will not be delivering anything resembling this to parents and other interested parties. White adults who have been invited to the table, little quotes around it, or in cases where mandatory company meetings are called, report that mere questioning of any aspect of this forced opinion is classified as racist, and any person of color who dares do the same is deemed not dark enough. This ideology depends on a buy-in. It's very important to have a buy-in of it. I'm not sure the school board's on board with that, and accordingly, most sane adults find CRT presumptuous and racially polarizing, doing just the opposite that it claims it's going to do. Our children of all ages and colors, but especially our younger ones, faced with the certainty of implementation, will leave any discussion feeling confused. With no choice, the children will essentially be bullied into submission. Interestingly and ironically, we always held teachers up as nurturing, and now we are faced with protecting our kids from them. I'm asking our school board, who I will always remind, work for us and not New York State, to suspend all curricular and non-curricular implementation of any form of CRT and its 87 subheadings until you get that buy-in from both parents and taxpayers. Informational meetings, unlike these school board meetings, would be in order. And why not put it to a district-wide vote? As long as we're on the subject of smoke and mirrors, if we required the police to wear cameras, then the schools who became practiced at live streaming during the COVID fiasco, who each year get most of our property taxes and are entrusted with the future of this United States, our children, should be required to put cameras in the classroom or even have teachers don body cams. Put it on a ballot, add it to our taxes. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Louis Levine.
Good evening. I'm Louis Levine. I'm at 478 Sandy Stone Circle. I've been a resident of Webster for over 22 years, and I've never had a need to address the board until now. And I would just like to take a quick second to tell you how gracious the board was to me when I was personally introduced to them last week. The matter that I am commenting on this evening is regarding a severance agreement that apparently is being discussed between the district and former Superintendent Carmen Gamina. As a taxpayer, it is difficult for me to understand why any severance agreement is being considered. Mr. Gamina voluntarily retired on April 30th. In his own words, Mr. Gamina stated, "I notified our board of my intent to retire as of tomorrow. It has become more certain to me over the last few weeks that this is the best decision for me, my family, and the district." A payout is even more unconscionable when the retirement was abruptly announced 2 weeks after a former district employee filed a lawsuit against him and the district. On May 14th, I made a Freedom of Information request for documents related to any severance agreements. On June 11th, the request for those documents was denied. On June 13th, I appealed the denial. On June 25th, a law firm retained by the board responded to the appeal, stating I was not entitled to the related documents because they were not yet finalized. The employment contract between the board and former superintendent clearly outlined the benefits paid upon retirement. So why would there be a need for a separate severance agreement? I can assure you that if I were to retire tomorrow after 24 years I have worked for my employer, I would not receive a severance package. I would also like to point out that the employment contract for Mr. Gamina appears to have been the most lucrative for any superintendent in the entire county. Is it possible that the board is considering a payout of the remaining portion of the contract, which would amount to several $100,000, perhaps close to $500,000? I contend that any amount is too much. As a concerned taxpayer and resident of Webster, I would be shocked and angered if the board agrees to a severance package. I would argue that in this case, a payout to the former superintendent is a betrayal of the public's trust and a gift of the taxpayers' hard-earned dollars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer
speaker.
Fonseca.
Good evening, Jennifer Fonseca, 455 Forest Drive, I believe. The latest attacks by the mainstream left media are now further dividing specific groups of people. Specifically called out are Christians and those who support the traditional nuclear family and its values. Just today, their narrative has targeted us for leading the nation in speaking against specific issues at our local school boards. The mainstream media fears us. They fear that we can be engaged. They fear that we are in control of ourselves, and especially our children. They fear that we will take down their movement and their agenda to radicalize our children. Therefore, I would like to open up and direct my public comments right now to you, the board, and all the district employees, especially those who are part of any of the unions. I want you to reflect on and consider your own beliefs, what is true in your hearts, and challenge your integrity. These are yes/no questions. Brian, you're exempt. Do you believe, just kidding, Brian, I want you to think again. Do you believe a child's home experiences a part or plays a part in the disparities experienced in academic success today? Do you believe that these disparities that have been a part of history since the beginning of time are a result of race? Do you believe we are a racist country? Do you believe children as young as kindergarten should learn to distinguish color of their skin and other people's skin? Do you believe teaching or asking any age student that their gender identity is transient and should be identified? Do you believe a group's political position or ideologies should be taught to our students? Do you discard the science that we were created male and female and that families have the constitutional right and acknowledge to teach these as well as other biblical truths? If you answered no to the majority or to some of those questions, I implore you to rethink how you got to this point to move forward with diversity, education, and equity training and programs. You are going along with the evil implementation of sexuality education in our children's classrooms. Overall, you have an inherent belief that we, as a nation, value all people, our freedoms, and you love our country. But yet, you do not heed your own parents' wisdom when they said, if all your friends jump off a bridge, would you do it too? But that is exactly what each of you have done. You've jumped off the bridge. You relented to the pressure of a certain subgroup. Did you consider the research and data in order to make an informed decision? Where is our children's voice? Where is our voice? Now, if you answered yes, or yes to some of them, this is why there is a radical agenda indoctrinating our children under the guise of division, inclusion, and equity. You're also going to start hearing secular, my mind went and I went on the time, but I'll get back to it. There may never be a way to have an informed or logical conversation with those in this group. Know that we, and we are actually many people are on vacation this week, by the way. I talked to them. Know that we, and we are many, will continue to fight and to fight this agenda for our children. Community, I want you to know, they are sexualizing our children with inappropriate content and visual at every age level. They are pushing other agenda narratives such as gender identity and sexual orientation. They are taking away your rights, your beliefs in God and what His Word says about the family, sexuality, and marriage. They are telling white children they are privileged and black children are oppressed. They are creating a culture of hate amongst racial lines. They are rewriting our nation's history with a one-sided view. They are manipulating, confusing, and terrifying children by putting negative thoughts into their heads that were never there to begin with. This is the most suggestive form of indoctrination based on Marxism. Sir, CRT is alive and well in the curriculum and programs here in Webster. Please let him know. This violates First Amendment rights. Public schools are subject to the First Amendment, which prevents the government from restricting protected speech, but it also prevents compelled or forced speech. Any lesson, training, or program that forces one to support controversial concepts is in violation, as it forces one to mouth support for positions such as privilege, guilt, identity, or status. This also violates Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and our 14th Amendment. And I'm glad that you all just swore an oath to your Constitution. You are breaking your Constitution as well as ours. So, Board of Education, we want all so-called diversity, inclusion, and equity and sexuality programs of any types for teachers to teach and to our children removed from our schools. We want Terry McCarthy and Lucia Kemp's positions as task force co-directors terminated and any spending for professional development, materials, books, or other resources canceled immediately. The oversight of our taxpayer money has been compromised yet again and abused. If this board refuses to act upon this, we demand your resignation. Webster community, you need to let your voices be heard. Do not be afraid of any manipulating threats or other intimidating tactics as have been seen over this past year. Let your school know that you will be the only one teaching your child about sexuality and that it is not their job. They are not paid to indoctrinate our children. They are paid to educate them. School board, Mr. Neenan, you have been bought by the lie of all lies. There is only one way out. Know that I and many others are praying for you, and that your hearts may be softened, that the scales fall from your eyes, that you may find the truth, and that there is only one truth. We know the end of the story, that Satan loses and God wins. Thank you.
Thank you. Madeline Borchers.
Hi, my name is Madeline Borchers, and I'm in 8th grade at Willink Middle School. I would like to share with you my experiences as a student this year, but to start, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I've been an active participant in many school activities. I've participated in 3 years of the Webster Marching Band, been a member in Webster Girl Scouts for 8 years, and played on the Willink Modified Tennis Team. I've received awards for many of these activities, and have been recognized with high honor or with distinction throughout all of my time at Willink. I am sharing this to show you that I'm an active citizen in my school and my community. I don't need to explain what a disappointing year we had in school, but want to focus on the last 2 months. One Sunday in June, I got a notification that wearing a mask in school was now my choice. I was ecstatic. I went to school as confidently as I could without a mask to show them that I was happy. Unfortunately, that night, I found my choice was gone again. Of course, I was disappointed, but more importantly, I was amazed that not one of my teacher or administrator, many which did not wear a mask on Monday, did not stand up for this as being wrong. I even emailed you, all of the board, as well as all of my teachers. Not one of you on the board responded. Only one teacher responded to me, applauding my bravery to write an email and stand up for my beliefs. I decided to take a stand if my adult mentors would not. The next day, I was sent to the office and came without a mask. I refused to wear one. My teachers, instead of trying to support me, tried to convince me to put one back on. When I refused, I was put into a small back room with one other person who also would not wear a mask, similar to in-school suspension. I was disgusted in the action they took upon me and my fellow peers. I was in that same room for the last 4 days of school. Teachers either pretended I no longer existed, or they agreed that they could not help me. Why am I here? This is your call to action. I hope that my story gives you the courage to stand up for what you believe in and show others what you stand for, even if you're the only voice. Freedom of choice. The board, teachers, parents, students need to find their voices and work together and demand freedom of choice for masks and the COVID vaccine. And lastly, number 3, students should be encouraged to think for themselves without ever knowing their teacher's political or social views. Many times I am told what my teacher thinks, then ask my opinion. How can we as students go against those in authority and be free thinkers with this instruction? I hope you can find the courage and voice that I have found. Let's work together and make Webster a place worth living again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our speakers this evening. Moving on, our first item of business is the Webster Central School District Safety Plan, which has already had a public hearing. I did see Neil. There you are.
Yeah, there's no changes to the plan other than we officially put the pandemic plan that was voted on earlier into the document. We are still waiting for the finalizing the new school resource officer agreement, but both us and the Webster Town Board are in complete agreement to do that again for the next few years. So the plan itself is. So.
Thank you.
No official comments during the last month period when we opened it up in the meeting early in June.
Correct. That's right. Does anyone have any comments at this time? I would just like to say on behalf of all of us, thank you for you and your team and what you do for our meetings and what you do for the students and staff of this district every single day. You are greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
And with that, can we have a motion, please, to accept the safety plan along with the pandemic plan? Maria, everybody's moving. Maria, and a second by Janice. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, I believe they. Thank you very much, Neil. Next item of business is the 2021-22 Boces Transportation Contract.
Sure.
Brian, to speak to that.
Just have several kind of housekeeping, end of the year, beginning of the year items to go through. The first of which is an approval of our Boces transportation contract. This is our yearly contract with Boces. We outsource roughly about 50 students, have for over 20 years for transportation with Boces. This is an estimated contract for approval. It's the first blush. It is the best guess of where we're going to be June 30th of 2022. There are changes throughout the year. Boces is also struggling with a driver shortage like everybody else. If you drive by one of our buildings, we're hiring. You see the signs everywhere. If you listen to Legends 1027, we now have advertisements going on the radio for recruitment purposes as well. So nothing new there. That we're trying is like every other district to bring and recruit more drivers. But that's one of the reasons why we have this Boces transportation contract for your approval tonight.
And with that, are there any questions or discussions around the Boces transportation contract? Okay.
How does the cost compare to last year?
It's roughly the same.
Thank you.
So it is the recommendation of the business office that the board accept the bid and approved attached contract. Can we have a motion, please, to accept that?
So moved.
By Jen, and a
Second.
second by Janice. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
And then a nice segue into the next one is a approval for a transportation bid, like the aforementioned driver shortage. Something that we did about 3 years ago, where we bid out for some private bus carriers to assist us. And we utilized probably 4 to 6 runs with this private carrier. We transport students to all 4 corners of Monroe County and beyond. So it's just a little extra to help us. We put the bid into the paper and sent it out to a bunch of private groups as well. We received 1 bid, so we're going to accept that. No other bidders responded. A couple of us sent us some very nice emails saying we'd love to, but we have a driver shortage as well. We can't commit to anything. So this is a transportation bid contract for your approval with Ontario Bus Company.
Any questions about the proposed contract? Seeing none, can we have a motion, please, to accept the bus contract? By Mike, second by Linda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Great. Next up is a tax certiorari settlement between the town and the district with VOA Cobblestone. Just to wrap your minds around where is this, think of the complex behind Brewster's on Ridge Road back there. We've had ongoing tax assessment challenges with that property since 17-18 fiscal year. So the resolution is to resolve the dispute, which was really a group effort between the town and the school district. And the proposal forward is an agreement with all parties, minimal exposure reduction, so a little bit of a savings there from what they were originally asking. And we have a tax certiorari reserve for cases like this. We average settling maybe 1 to 2 of these a year, and every fall we receive a new batch. So that's what the reserve is used for. So the reserve will pay for this refund for those fiscal years. But it is my recommendation that this is a good deal for the district, and the town is in agreement as well, and we should approve it going forward.
Any questions about settling the tax certiorari proceeding that is before us?
Are we likely to have this when they do another tax assessment, when we have reassessment again? Is this likely to be something that they can then again come back and negotiate through, a tax certiorari?
Right. So they couldn't renegotiate. In essence, everybody, every resident, every corporation has the right to challenge their assessment. So that will, in essence, never go away. But once you've gone through this process and you've gotten to this point where everybody's in agreement that this is a good number, if a town goes to do a reassessment townwide wise, I can't speak for certain with the assessor or who they have do it. I can't imagine that they would go against this and change it during a reassessment, that this would hold into the future.
Okay. And so 1 to 2 times a year, we have a situation like this where we actually have to pay them a refund based on what we've collected?
It varies. Quite often we don't owe refunds,
Okay.
but we have about 25 of these open cases.
Okay.
And every fall, we do an overview of how many of these open cases. Usually during tax season, we get a new batch. And usually it's in the October meeting, do a line by line of all the open cases against the district and what properties there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Based on the opinion of our school attorney, it is recommended that we approve the attached resolution to settle the tax certiorari proceeding. Can we have a motion, please? By Mike, second. Linda, all in favor?
Aye.
I believe that's everybody. Okay. All right, thank you. And the DeWitt change order.
Next up, so
Yep.
this a change order for the current project. Actually, it started off not a construction-related issue. During our fire inspections, in the hallway, there's these cubbies that are sticking out, and the fire inspector wanted us to do something with those, thought they impeded movement about the building in case there was an emergency. So with the construction going on, we looked at some alternatives. and came up with moving those into the classrooms, which are already being renovated, with some additional casework and some storage that worked on with the construction team and the team at DeWitt. And it's over the change to the project. This wasn't an original scope item, but the change to the project is over the $35,000 limit, so the board needs to approve that, and before we can send it on to SED for final approval. So that's, in a nutshell, what this change is. It wasn't something we originally thought about doing in the project, wasn't a need, but it was born out of our fire safety inspections when they came around, told us we probably want to get those out of the hallway and into a classroom. So this solved a fire inspection issue, and we're doing it as part of the project, which now makes it aidable as part of building aid.
Thank you. Are there any questions about this change order? Okay.
Nope, the change order is actually $58,563, but it's an adjustment to the entire contract for the construction firm that is doing all the elementary schools. So their overall bid is for all 7 schools. This is really $58,000 more, so it changes what they bid on and won back in March. It just changes their contract by $58,563.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further discussion, can we have a motion, please, to accept the change order as discussed?
So moved.
By Maria? Oh, second by Jen. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. And next
Thank
up, it seems weird to have a treasurer's report from April in the July, but just the way the timing of bank statements and all works out. So we have a treasurer's report overview for you. Not a lot going on in the month of April fiscally, made whole by the county for tax collection in that month. You see a little increase in expenditures for the month of April around supplies and things like that compared to previous months. That was based on, remember, we were having a huge withholding in state aid for this past fiscal year. And March actually, the last Friday in March, the state made us whole on our obligations, so there was no more withholdings. So in the month of April, we loosened up some of our spending restrictions for the buildings and departments, so you saw an uptick in supplies there compared to other months. But as far as that ho-hum treasurer's report, not a lot going on. Just wanted to point out a couple of those things for you.
Thank you. So everyone's had a chance to review the treasurer's report and executive summary. Are there any questions? Seeing none, can we have a motion, please, to accept the April treasurer's report?
So moved.
Jen, in a second?
Second.
By Janice. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Spring capital project update.
Great. Okay, I'm going to have to switch computers so we can project a little here. That's the next one. Oh. So this is a new report that I wanted to add for the board, doing a quarterly construction update because we have so much going on. So this is our springtime update. So a couple things going on just to show you and update you. A lot of pictures here too, so you can see some before and after. This is the style and format of the report that I'm thinking going with, but at all, if there's something missing, please, or something else you want to see, let me know and we could adjust accordingly. So we're just going to give you an update. First section is what's going on with the contracts. So we still had a few what we call punch list items here at SPRI to finish out the 2016 capital project that were finished up here in the spring. So, but pretty much this will probably be the last item that we have seen for the SPRI 2016 capital improvement project. Just a few little things with SPRI here that needed to be finishing, some warranty items, some work that we called out and asked to be changed here at SPRI as well. So that's the SPRI update, little detail there. Lots going on at Schrader High School in the springtime. It really started last fall, but spring really tying up some of the loose ends on the new turf area, laying down the track is commencing and prepping for that new surface. So a lot of that going on, along with prepping in the springtime for what's going to happen, what's currently happening in the Schrader building now once school was out. So a lot of planning and prepping went in the spring because we had to move a lot of people. In essence, the building's shut down several wings for construction, so a lot going on there. So the report gets you a little bit more detail of what's going on in the spring, but in a nutshell, that's what's happening at Schrader on the outside. And then in the spring, Thomas, a lot happening at Thomas on the technology wing, going room by room. You can see that the outside of the automotive is being completed. The garage doors were put in. We're 99% of the way there. The pool, you'll see some great pictures if you remember before or after what that pool looked like when I learned in gym class how to swim there compared to what it looks like now. It's like night and day, a lot of work in that pool area. And you see in the springtime too, we started taking some of the field work offline to prep for their turf baseball and softball in multi-purpose as well, and the expansion of the parking lot, which will make the juniors at Thomas extremely excited with the addition of some more parking passes that can now be handed out at Thomas. So a lot going on there. Big thank you to the Thomas staff. A lot of dust flying around, especially the tech teachers with being really helpful in allowing to get in there and do the jumping from room to room to room to help with the time frame. And then on the elementary side, we hit the ground running in the spring. Really at DeWitt, library is actually almost done already at this point. Found some fun surprises at DeWitt. There was in the library a full bathroom that had been buried in the wall, which was interesting, the incomplete plumbing hookup that nobody knew was there. It was originally from the early 60s. And also a couple air raid horns up in some of the ceiling area that had been hidden for quite some time. So those were fun surprises, but really moving along at DeWitt right now with that library almost done. And you can see at the Planks in the springtime, we started on some of their playgrounds as well and really getting going. So the elementary work is really going to be done over 2 years. There's just too much of it to be done in 1 year. So we're phasing it out. So most of the springtime is focused really on the outside, getting those playgrounds done and getting DeWitt up and running with their library before they move on to Plank North's library and Plank South's this summer. And then just phasing, this is tentative of what we have coming up next. So when we do the summer update in early fall, you'll get a better suggestion, but you can also then see what's coming up down the road, including, often forgot about, we are doing some transportation upgrades, and Willink Middle School is also going to be starting probably in December of '21. So there's where we are on phasing. And then just some photos to show you the before and after. I think my PDF moved too quickly here, and there were photos there. I didn't take blank pictures. I'm much better at the camera than this. Let me try this. Oh, did we lose wireless? Oh, it's coming back. Maybe. Wait, there's some great pictures here.
There are
Promise.
great pictures.
Fingers crossed. Maybe you could see them on your computer. I don't know. The connection's a little fuzzy here. Oh, back. I've lost it. I'm sorry. I apologize. But yeah, just some amazing pictures before and after. I know we got a lot of positive comments from the Schrader graduation of people that looked over and saw what we have there now and how that has really changed the back of that facility. And looking forward to having the same thing at Thomas. So I apologize with the technical difficulties why that's not coming up right now for us. Hopefully we'll solve that by the spring report. Any questions on the construction overall that's going on, or timeframes, anything that stuck out to you?
No questions, Brian, but it is great to drive by the schools and see the new playgrounds in place. It's wonderful. So even especially having kids in the district, we've been talking about it for so long, so they love seeing it. Even though they're not in elementary anymore, they see it and they recognize it. So I'm happy to see all that.
You know what the great thing is too, is there, 7 buildings and we strive for, uniformity in some cases, but I think, if you have elementary school kids, I did this with my son, is there's a little bit of flavor at each building, a little bit something different. So if you want to change up the scenery, we're in the Schlegel catchment, so, drive over to DeWitt or after lacrosse practice, ooh, they have something we don't, let me run over there. So there is a little variety around town too, which is nice.
That's a great point. I really encourage parents to take their kids around to the different schools because they are different. That's where my kids learn to ride their bikes, is in those parking lots. They're nice and big, and nobody's driving around in there.
Am I on? There we go. Thanks. No, and I just want to thank Brian for putting that report together when he brought it to senior leadership and said, what are you thinking about this idea of bringing, a quarterly update? I love it. I think it's fantastic, and I think it's great for the community, but it's certainly great for the board to also know all the progress. So Brian, thanks for taking all the time to put into your report.
Excellent. I agree, especially delineating between the 2 different projects, because so much work has been concurrent, so it helps the community see the difference. And hopefully the pictures get uploaded to the district website so people can see. So just as an aside, tonight's agenda packet we receive in advance, so what may look like a cursory addressing of a particular subject, we've had a week to go through, to ask questions, to become familiar. So this particular reorganizational meeting was 283 pages long. So it's definitely a substantial amount of work, and we appreciate everything that went into it.
I think I just froze part of it, so sorry.
The pictures are worth seeing. Okay, that was for information only.
Yep.
Are there any other questions or feedback? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Moving on to the food service update and budget approval.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to give you a little overview, because last year we came to the board with a food service update, and the food service program was really struggling last year. So wanted to make sure I came back and touch base with everybody in regards to 1 year later, what's going on, and some changes that I think are positive and could be here to stay. So we're just going to review a few things, give you a little financial update, participation updates, program adjustments, and then have you adopt the food service budget. So I would be remiss to say the last year, a huge thank you to staff for the food service staff, did a tremendous job supporting each other, especially helping on the secondary, coming to help elementary and doing a lot of work, but especially as Mr. Flood and his staff here at Schrader knows, last summer we did a meals program drive up at Schrader, and the security team there on a daily basis was very supportive in helping making that flow. But the staff, the food service staff, pulled off a tremendous feat with flexibility this year, right up to end of August, not really knowing what was going to happen. So just a quick financial update. What a difference a year makes. So this is a 5-year look back of where food service has been, and had some ups and downs and some losses, as you can tell. We've talked about this before.
Hey, Brian, you want to present?
Oh, you can't see it?
Then
All
you
right.
can see it better.
I was afraid to break something again. So, see?
See, there we go. All right. Sorry, that is totally my fault. There we go.
So if we just flash backwards a little bit, food service is a self-sustaining entity. It really is like a restaurant. We run it like, as close to a private business as you possibly could imagine. It's got to be self-sustaining and self-supporting. And if you think about 20, 25, 30 years ago, the menu has been so much more regulated by USDA, by New York State. So we look back and we've had some ups and downs, but we've had some fund balance to work off of some profits and losses. But really, the last couple of years, we were, to use a phrase, taking it on the chin financially for food service. Trying to balance what's right pricing for families and while trying to keep our costs down. Food costs, were going up and restrictions were there. So when we proposed this to you, our participation had dropped significantly. But in 1 year with the program we ran this year, we were able to make back and add back to a fund balance that is similar to 5 years ago. Now, this is projected. We'll put an asterisk because we got to wait to get through our audit. Our auditors will tell us, your inventory is worth this much, and we'll put our numbers to those final numbers to it. So this is an estimate, best guess of where we're going to end the fiscal year. So what really is transpired? If we go back 11-12, look at how many meals we served for October versus October versus October. And picked October because it's a consistent month as far as days in school. And it's really a very good snapshot of how the year is going to go. So if you look 11-12, where our meals were, to 19-20, where we were in October, pre-pandemic, we had lost at the elementary, middle, and high school. And I have further data on that. It's not student population going out. It's just kids not participating in lunch anymore because, there wasn't the cool stuff you could get anymore. The Little Debbies weren't there and things like that, all the regulations. So looking at this past October, you could see the elementaries really took off with the free lunch program that we'll say. That'll explain a little bit more. So it was a huge difference, and that carried through for the entire year. Now, October for middle and high school, if you would have come into the cafeteria here, there was still this kind of eeriness at the high schools. Those of you that might have middle school or high school students, it was almost like, can we go up there? Should we go up there? And I want to say by December, that went away. We saw participation return back. So October was extremely low. So you could see, the difference between the 2 years was not that many meals. But where did we save or make money was the federal and state reimbursement rates for meals significantly increased. So for what we were serving, we saw federal and state reimbursement rates increase, so that helped. So now looking towards next year, everyone's going to eat free again. That was recently issued last month. We're going to participate. We are actually, because of that, going to put the high schools, we had removed them to kind of do some fun and creative stuff, and then we couldn't because of the pandemic. So we're going to, we can come in and out at any time, but we're going to put the high schools back in the program just because everyone's going to eat free again at the high schools and at the high schools. So, like I said, the timing was terrible to come out. We had the best intentions based on the trends of participation. Students were telling us, we do not want to eat the meals that were being provided at the high school. That's what the data was telling us. That's why we made that decision. But with the universal free program, makes sense to return and see how that goes. My prediction is, and I know we've discussed this, I think this is where we're going. I think this is going to be a permanent move across New York State. I think the USDA might actually make it permanent and New York State make it permanent that free school lunch will be there and breakfast. So when I say prices don't really matter, if whatever price we adopt as a district, it's inconsequential because everybody can eat free. We are going to add some UPK meals with the expansion of that program. Normally that was a half-day program. Now with the expanded funding in UPK and the expansion of that, it's to a full-day 5-hour program, providing breakfast and lunch for those students. That's an extra 300 students that weren't there last year. We'll see how that also adds to the bottom line. And one thing that is changing is the state's discontinuing the meal program, the drive-ups for like how we did in the holidays and in the summertime. The state has actually discontinued that. So it's not a question of Webster participating or Webster not participating. The state is discontinuing that and going back to their old, you have to apply, you have to have a free and reduced rate much higher. And then lastly is just overall a budget adoption for you to take a look at. This is actually fairly flexible because it does change throughout the year based on USDA commodity pricing. So just overall, the budget for food service that you can see before you, because I haven't broken your computers yet, is a little over what do I have? Sorry, I don't have it memorized. $3.3 million, a little bit more than last year, but we're expecting more revenue. And it really comes down to some fluctuation on what the commodity pricing we get from the USDA will be. So when you see reports throughout the year on food service, you might see some adjustments to this budget. We're given that flexibility to change it. Can't change the budget we vote on, but since this one is not voted on with audit approval, we can change that. So there we go. This is off to a, knock on wood, off to a great start. So can I still do this? Any questions on what I've presented there?
So Brian, the difference between last year and this year was over 1.3 million.
So the elementaries carried the participation, and we saw the high schools come back as the year progressed. And then once we even saw the higher reimbursement rate, and we saw middle and high school kids as the year moved on from October get more comfortable and come through the line more.
Thank you.
I too would like to echo my thanks to food service. When we think back just a short while ago, the thousands of meals that were provided to Webster families and children who were in need over the pandemic is just astounding. The work that they did was truly remarkable and very much appreciated. And I also have a question. What is the status of the Aquaponics program right now?
So we're still growing.
Still got some tilapia.
We had a couple of classrooms that visited, not nearly as many of the high school classes, because time.
Right.
This year, it was all about time. So, we had general chemistry classes that would come and do some work, but it was all about, maximizing time, and, that experience often got, pushed to the side, and many of our fifth grade classes didn't come like they normally do. So, still up and running, we're still growing lettuce, and using it, but it just, the kid element and the full usage of it wasn't quite there this year.
Experience.
Yeah.
But you expect it to return
To normal.
To normal.
Yep.
Good. Any other questions, thought, discussion around food service? Okay, then can we have a motion, please, to approve the food service budget?
So moved.
Motion by Jen.
Second.
Second by Janice. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Now, moving on to the attendance at the New York State School Board Association Convention to be held October 24th to the 26th in New York City. So typically, we have taken turns, and of course, those types of conferences haven't occurred this past year. I don't even remember whose turn it is. However, we would give the first rights to the newest board members. And Janice, that would include you as well, because you wouldn't have had an opportunity. So
It doesn't matter to me.
if there's
How many go? 1, 2?
typically two, and then sometimes district administration will accompany. So it's really nice to be able to share things. I mean, you can share with all of us when you return, but to be able to be with district administration while you're learning new things, because then if something were to be implemented or go to the next steps, it's great to be there with someone.
It's in person this year, Tammy?
It
Okay.
is.
It's in New York
It's in New York City.
Actually, but yeah, so it's specifically there. Okay. So I'd be willing to go. That's fine.
Okay. I think you can follow up with Cindy, and she'll make all the arrangements for you. And I don't know if we know,
Yeah, I'll be going.
okay.
I'll be going with you guys.
Okay.
They're wonderful experiences, both New York State and national, to be able to compare and see how our district lines up with other districts and trends in education. They're fabulous experiences, so.
So we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, so part of the resolutions, the business portion of the meeting, does require all of us discussing the resolution kit. So there are resolutions that have already been documented and forwarded, and that's part of our packet information that you've received as well. We have the opportunity to go through those and discuss if we support something, if we want someone to be there in person to actually attend the business portion of the meeting and represent the interest of the Webster Board of Education.
Actually, that part is online this year. It happens before the meeting. It's a virtual, the voting delegates.
voting,
So,
okay.
yeah, it would be, I think it's a few days before. That just came out. So it won't be in New York. It's actually, it's all, must be.
Before.
Yep,
Yeah, it's
yep.
before.
It's the week before, so we'll just. have to-
October 18th, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
we just have to decide at some point who will be our delegate.
Tammy, I have a follow-up question when you have a chance. If two of us are agreed upon with the budget-wise, could the third of us pay our own way to attend as well?
I suppose, I don't think that's anything we typically have done in the past, but
You didn't go, nobody went last year,
Right.
We
so
didn't.
Say that.
I think we can
I think you
swing
go from
a
last
third.
year. Did they go from this year? I think we go,
Go, at least be one this year,
Yeah.
especially taking on the new
Yeah.
role, so.
So then we could both attend?
yeah,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
But what we should do is review the resolutions kit together and have a discussion about that. Typically, we go through every resolution, but given the length of today's meeting, that would be a pretty hefty task. So we can convene and read on our own and make recommendations and come back and address that in public at a later date. Okay. So then, do we want to make a motion that the three of you attend? Okay, by Maria, and second by Janice. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, pack your bags. It's awesome. You're going to love it. Moving on then to liaison assignments. We have Monroe County School Board Association committees, district community committees, and PTSA building representation for all 11 buildings. And we each, based on who was in a given role last year, will roll forward, and that document is a public document, and every committee that we serve on, especially through Monroe County, that is actually our free professional development, if you will, and a chance to interact with our peers. Every single committee is worthy of our time and an important contribution to what we do. So thank you, everybody, for making those decisions and choosing, and thank you to Linda for setting up the document and moving that work forward. So can we have a motion, please, to accept the board liaison assignments for 21-22?
I make a motion.
By Shanna, second.
Second.
Janice, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Tammy, before you move on, I noticed that Schlegel is still missing. Okay, just want to make sure.
Sorry.
Okay.
That was my mistake. It went out before.
Okay.
So we have to amend
Just so
that.
Schlegel doesn't.
I will
forget.
do Schlegel. Yeah, Sue Casey was there
Thank you.
forever, and I'll try to uphold her work. Next on the agenda is the first reading of the draft calendar of the Board of Education. So what we typically do is conduct a business meeting and a workshop meeting every month, except for March, which belongs to Brian Freeman and Budget Development. And so what we have come to agreement to is that we'd like to change the evenings of our board meetings to Tuesday night. And we've discussed this a couple different times and wanted to delay the conversation about that to give the 2 new board members the chance to express their thoughts and opinions and availability and make sure that that change would be okay with them. So having said that, now we can populate the calendar. And what we'll do at the retreat is we'll discuss a wide array of topics, things that we may want to follow up on from the past, new trends, and we will populate the calendar based on instructional reports, which allows us to see from every instructional department their work, their challenges, their results that they want to share with the board. And then workshop are informal opportunities to learn. So all of the meetings are, workshop meetings are district-led by senior staff and administration, and so that will actually be, I think, very engaging and fun work for us to build what it is that we think is important this year that we want to talk about. So having said that, at least now Cindy can have the dates. Typically, we're a little bit late this year, but it was definitely important to have everybody on the same page about that. So can we have a motion, please, to accept the first reading of the Board of Education calendar?
So moved.
Jen, and a second?
Second.
Janice, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries, which leads us now to the interim superintendent's report. Mr. Neenan.
Thank you, Tammy. First of all, I'd just like to start out with saying how excited we all were for 2 amazing graduations, 2 amazing nights. What a beautiful way to usher us into the summer, if you will. And again, everybody knew that when we were there, it was a beautiful scene. It did not go without hard work. There were a lot of people that put a lot of time and a lot of effort, and my kudos goes out to all of our staff. Some of them, Neil and some of our security team that are here tonight too. They were a huge part of making that happen. It is something that we will be discussing this summer. I've had this question many times in the last couple of weeks from parents, and certainly from our staff as well, as far as going forward, will they continue to be on campus? I think we've got many people that would like that, so we're going to have those conversations and come up with an answer here going into the year. So our hope is that we're going to have an answer by August, so every family knows. Just so you know, right now we are committed to going back to RIT, but we can pull that back. So I just wanted to start with that, but again, 2 amazing nights, and we'll be having more of those conversations at our retreat. Okay, tonight my report is really all about our very first thought exchange. So at the end of the month, we conducted our first thought exchange, and it was great. It was fantastic. It was in the sense of it was an opportunity for us to get feedback. Are there things that we want to improve upon this? Absolutely. We chose the topic for the first thought exchange is we needed to seek feedback from the community on ways to spend our federal dollars, and in order for us to do that, we thought, perfect, this is an opportunity to kind of test drive, if you will, thought exchange, because we know we want to use this going forward as well to garner feedback on different topics. So we learned a lot through this process. If you did participate in it, it started off with a video that Paul Conley actually helped me put together and our team, and it was really about the concept of thought exchange and also what this particular thought exchange was about. So the nice thing about that, you can see the question up there is what we asked, but again, it all really pertained to the federal funds. But we had 1,184 people participate, which I think we learned from Thought Exchange when we did a debrief with them that was a very high number and a really good return rate, which is a good start for us, if you will. We had over 1,000 thoughts, and we had 33,000 ratings, which is, again, some good numbers for us to really get started with. Breakdown was pretty even, elementary and secondary, as far as our parents and community that had either elementary, secondary students, both or none. This is what we call a Wordle. And this Wordle is actually something that if you look at all the thoughts, this is artificial intelligence generated, And all of the words that are bigger are the ones that would appear more in our thoughts. So you can get the idea of kind of some of the things and some of the themes that we were seeing over and over in those thoughts. When we look at this graph here, this is the one that for us says, you know what, the thought exchange worked for what we were looking for. We were looking for what is some things that are very important to our community right now that we will spend these federal funds that are, Brian has explained to us many times, that we use over a 3-year period. Smaller class sizes came up, number one. And by the way, that was also the match for the staff. Many of these that you're seeing on this list was a match for our staff, which is fantastic in the sense of we can now say, okay, from the community side and from our staff side, we've got some real direction now as to what we want to spend those federal funds on in the next 3 years. So this was very helpful for us in that feedback piece. The takeaways for us, first of all, a huge thank you to those that did participate and those that asked questions while this was going on. Many people emailed some of us to get clarity on some of the different pieces of this, and also to the board for supporting this, because this is something that we've been saying in the last 2 months that we know we need to do more of, is gather feedback from the community, and that we are going to, and hopefully you've seen that effort, and that effort will continue in finding not just this way, but other ways to really gather that feedback, to be able to enter into some dialogue with people as well, because that's another piece that came up in some of the comments in this, but it have come to me in the last several weeks as well, as we're looking for opportunities to be able to engage. And I get it, and we understand as a board, we all understand that we know that the avenue right now, when you come up and give us your public comment, that's the way it is in a board meeting, but we can look for opportunities for those dialogue as well. So, and then I think the stakeholders, both staff and families that participated. So I think in a lot of ways, it was a very positive first thought exchange, but we'll do more. And that ends my report.
Thank you so much, Brian. Now, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which, as I mentioned before, we've had ample time to review all of the information contained in the agenda packet. The consent agenda allows us to make one motion that addresses a lot of kind of just ordinary administrative items. So they include the approval of minutes, personnel actions, and appointments, recommendation of the Committee on Special Education meetings, reevaluations and eligibility, and the recommendation of the Committee on Preschool Special Education meetings, which also have their scheduled dates. CSE appointments, the district organizational chart, and some bids, including bagels. So, having said that, and we've all had a chance to review, can we have a motion, please, to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Jen said so moved, I'll second.
And second by Janice. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. With that, before we adjourn, I believe there were a couple.
Louise?
Okay. Mr. Louise?
Personal this time. So I was thinking of what to say, and I went to my notes, and I saw something that I had written a while back concerning my daughter. I had thought it was for a school project that she had to turn in, but I think it was more for her baby book that I just did 25 years behind the schedule. But this is what I wrote. You were born out of love between your mother and I, and from our parents and family and friends, and most importantly, from the love of the Father and His only Son, Jesus, the grand designer of life, that you are now joyfully and wonderfully a part of. May you grow in such knowledge, and may you walk in His ways. We love you very much. We are blessed to have you. I feel that today, with the things that we're talking about, with the sexual revolution that we're trying again and make steeper, and with the, for lack of a better word, critical race theory that we think we don't do, but you know what I'm talking about. How do we deal with our whiteness, etc. I feel that these are contrary things for kids to hear that are contrary to his ways. They contain only a portion of the truth. The idea of stain, you'll hear that word, maybe not sin, but stain, racism that we bear. That's part of it. But what's lacking, what's not there, is the part of forgiveness and grace. Not to mention free will. That you can't put people in pockets like you're white, you're black, you're this. I could do the same. You know, the Bible says there's two kinds of people. Those that are written in the book of life and those that aren't. Those that are saved, those that aren't. So the point is, we've left that out, those two important parts. And I can't blame you because we've really kicked religion out of the schools. And what do you expect for it to be filled with? It's going to be vacuumed. And I think, you know, they call themselves progressives. I stand here to tell you that the most progressive person in this world was Jesus Christ. And Christianity was very progressive. There's a reason why this is 1921, or 2021, forgive me, AD. You know, they changed the world, and they made it a better place. Yes, we've made mistakes, but they can be corrected by the same Christianity. And I just feel that this attempt at fixing certain of these problems, they have dubious beginnings. And someone here a few weeks ago said, it's of Satan. That's pretty strong, but from my point of view, you know, I think there's something to that. So at any rate, I was not born a Christian. Something happened to me as a young adult. I didn't go to church. I didn't pray. I didn't read the Bible. Something had to happen to me, and it did. And I'll best describe it from a book that I had to approve on a board that I used to be on. It was a history book. And I took a look through that book, and in there was a beautiful page all about Charles Finney. Charles Finney was a lawyer who turned evangelist who was here in the 1830s. He turned Rochester upside down, closed the bars, etc. There's a school named after him today, and there's also, I think, a statue somewhere in the city. But at any rate, in this book, public school book, was the full gospel. It talked about the basics, you know, that Jesus died for our sins. Faith in Calvary leads to eternal life and saving us from perdition. And he was heavy on this. The only thing that would send you to hell is rejecting this gospel, rejecting the obedience and the change to it. He called for self-examination and personal experience. He didn't like head knowledge. He didn't like to know, well, I know all about Jesus. He lived 2,000 years ago. But is it true for you? Do you know that personally? That's what he preached. And that's what happened to me as a young adult, where I had to confront myself and answer the question, where am I going to spend eternity? And that's what Finney had to do. He had his change also. One day he says, I want to settle it. I can't stand it. And the Holy Spirit came upon him, and he saw the light and started preaching it. So at any rate, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all knowledge and wisdom. And to put proof into that, Charles Finney then, he had, I think, the first college in 1833 that admitted blacks and women, and he was very heavy into abolition of slavery, one of the first preachers to go against it, and the Underground Railroad. So there's the good side of Christianity, you know. So there's something to be said for that. Obviously, I approved the book. That was 25 years ago. I don't know if you're going to find that page in any public school history book. It may be there, but the drift is there are ways for having his truth marching on without being illegal or unconstitutional. There's ways of monitoring and getting the truth in there a little bit. But I'm still against what is happening now, and I just pray for you guys. Congratulations on the two new people. I pray for everybody in this room that, you know, I just said something. I read a page of a gospel, and, you know, I just pray that if anybody's wondering and self-examining, there's always hope. Jesus loves us, and if we go to him, he's sure and true to give us faith where we didn't have it and change us to where one day we would say this, now maybe we would say that. So again, blessings on everybody here, and Lord, help us with what's going on and help us to see the light. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I believe that concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you all for your attendance and your interest. Can we have a motion to adjourn, please? Maria. In a second? Second. Janice, all in favor? Thank you. Have a safe and happy couple weeks until we meet again. Take care.